Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to discuss types of bonds. We will just define and clear our concepts about types of bond. And in class, in our school, inshallah, we will discuss in pretty much detail about the types of bonds along with examples and practice examples, self-assessment, etc. as well. Now just clear concepts about ionic bond and covalent bond, and if possible do examples by yourself. The first question arises in mind: why do atoms react, or why do atoms make bond? Remember, atoms make bond or atoms react with each other to become stable. Atoms react with each other in order to attain stability, in order to lower their energies, and in order to attain noble gas electronic configuration. Why atoms want to attain noble gas electronic configuration? Because we know that noble gases are the most stable gases in the periodic table, because they have either obeyed duplet rule or octet rule. What are duplet and octet rules? I have discussed in the previous lecture. So to become stable and to lower energies, atoms react with each other by different ways. Okay, during such reaction, in order to attain stability, valence electrons are involved in bonding. Atoms make bond, or atoms react with each other by using valence electrons. What are valence electrons? The electrons that are present in the outermost shell or in the last shell. Like in this case, there is simple atom having one electron in its last shell. So the valence electron in this atom is 1. What is chemical bond? The combining of atoms to form molecules or compound, or the force of attraction that hold atoms together in a compound. The force of attraction that holds atom together in a compound is called chemical bond. Like when two or more atoms react with each other, the force that is responsible for their attraction, that is responsible for their combination, is known as chemical bond. For example, sodium. Atomic number of sodium is 11 and atomic mass of sodium is almost 23. It is soft metal, can be cut with knife, silvery metal. Similarly, it reacts with chlorine, which is poisonous gas. Its atomic number is 17. Atomic mass is 35.5 almost. So sodium wants to attain stability. Similar is the case with chlorine. Chlorine also wants to attain stability. Both the atoms want to lower their energies. So they react together to form salt, commonly known as table salt, which we used in our daily life, the sodium chloride. By combining, by reacting, or by making chemical bond, the sodium and chlorine form NaCl, which is very stable compound. Types of chemical bonds. The first one is ionic bond. Ionic bond is formed when an atom loses or gains an electron. Or in other words, ionic bond is formed between atoms in which one atom loses an electron and the other atom gains an electron. Remember, the losing atom will be metal and the gaining atom will be non-metal, because metal has less electronegativity. Metals are electropositive in nature. Electropositive means that it has tendency to lose electrons. So metal will lose electron and the non-metals are more electronegative in nature. They are less electropositive, means they have tendency to gain electrons. So metal will lose electron and non-metal will gain electron to form ionic bond. So such force of attraction between metal and non-metal after gaining and losing electron is known as chemical bond. Metal after losing electron will form positive ion, and non-metal after gaining electron will form negative ion. Both the positive and negative ion will attract each other to form ionic bond. Let's take a look. Atoms start off neutral. When they lose or gain electron, they become ions. Like initially atoms are neutral, but when they lose electron, they become positive ion, and when they gain electron, they become negative ion, as we have discussed in the chapter number 1, the cations and anion topic. Ions are charged atoms. So ionic bond occurs between a metal and a non-metal. Let's take a look on this beautiful example. The ionic bond is between sodium and chlorine. Sodium has 1 electron in its outermost shell. It has 2 electrons in first shell, 8 electrons in second shell, and the one electron in outermost shell. Similarly, chlorine has 2 electrons in first shell, 8 electrons in second shell, and 7 electrons in third shell. So chlorine atom tends to gain 8 electronic configuration in outermost shell. So chlorine wants to gain electron. Similarly, sodium wants to lose that electron because it also wants to attain noble gas electronic configuration. So in sodium atom, the electron is lost and is gained by chlorine atom. Okay, so sodium atom has lost 1 electron, which is gained by chlorine atom. Sodium is metal and chlorine is non-metal. Electron in ionic bond transfer from metal to non-metal. Electrons either taken or given away. Okay, after losing electrons, sodium will acquire positive charge. So this positive will attract the negative charge because chlorine has acquired negative charge after gaining an electron from sodium. Okay, metals form cation as I have already discussed. For example, sodium, it will give away or loses electron. Similarly, non-metals form anion. Like chlorine is non-metal. It will gain an electron to form negative ion, Cl negative ion. The negative and positive ion attract, and this attraction is known as ionic bond. For example, sodium having 1 electron in its valence shell, and chlorine having 7 electrons in its valence shell. So sodium loses 1 electron to attain stability, and chlorine gains 1 electron to attain stability. Sodium, after losing 1 electron, sodium after losing 1 electron acquire noble gas electronic configuration of neon. Similarly, chlorine after gaining 1 electron will attain noble gas electronic configuration of argon. Both neon and argon has 8 electrons in their outermost shells, which results in higher stability of neon and argon. So that's why every atom tends to gain electronic configuration like noble gases, which are helium, neon, argon, krypton, etc. So sodium will lose its electron and will give it to chlorine. Sodium will acquire +1 charge and chlorine will acquire -1 charge. These both charges will attract, which as a result ionic bonds will be formed. NaCl, which is the common table salt which we use in our daily life, sodium chloride या नमक जिसको हम बोलते हैं. This is neutral compound, very stable compound. Okay, basically ionic bond, in ionic bond the strongest win the battle and loses the electron. For example, chlorine is higher electronegative atom, so it wins the battle and take electron from sodium. Sodium has one electron, chlorine also has electrons, but as chlorine is more electronegative, so it will attract electron from sodium. This is another diagram in order to clear your concept. Sodium having one electron in outermost shell and chlorine having 7 electron in outermost shell. So sodium will lose its electron to form positive charge and chlorine will gain electron to form negative charge. Such electrostatic attraction will result in the formation of ionic bond. An ionic bond is the resulting attraction for an anion and a cation after an electron is transferred from metal to the non-metal. Okay. The second type of covalent chemical bond is covalent bond. Covalent bond is formed when atoms share electrons. Remember, covalent bond occurs between two non-metal atoms. In both atoms, the electrons are shared. The valence electrons are shared because non-metals have higher electronegativity. So non-metal can attract electron, can withdraw electron from metal, but non-metal cannot attract or withdraw completely electron from non-metal. Okay, non-metal cannot withdraw electron completely from non-metal. So instead, they tend to prefer sharing of electrons, just sharing. So diatomic molecules, diatomic molecules are the molecules having two atoms. Atoms of the same element share electrons. For example, chlorine is an atom, second chlorine is an atom, so they share one electron each to form Cl2, chlorine gas. So single chlorine is unstable, having 7 electrons in outermost shell, so it shares an electron with other chlorine atom and the resulting chlorine becomes stable because 8 electrons are surrounding on each chlorine atom. 8 electrons, each chlorine can share and can use its 8 electrons. Or in other words, each chlorine attains the noble gas electronic configuration, having 8 electrons in its valence shell. For example, bromine, iodine, nitrogen, chlorine, hydrogen, oxygen, fluorine, etc. These are the nonmetals. They share electrons with each other to form diatomic molecules, Br2, I2, N2, Cl2, H2, O2, and F2, etc. So in covalent bonding, the atoms are of equal strength. So they prefer sharing of electron because no single atom can completely attract or completely withdraw electron from the other non-metal atom. So they prefer and tend to share electrons between them. This is another schematic diagram for your clarification that single higher energy atom, which is very unstable, tend to share electron with other atom. In previous topic, we have learned that one atom loses its valence electron and other gains the lost electron by metal. But in this case, they do not lose or gain electrons. Instead, they share electrons between them to form stable molecule. So covalent bond exists when two electrons are shared by two non-metal atoms. Okay, so ionic bond formed between metal and non-metal. Similarly, covalent bond is formed between two non-metal atoms. Okay, this was just the introduction and definition of ionic and covalent bonds. Inshallah, we will discuss in next lecture in detail about the different examples and the types of covalent bonds, and also I will give some molecules for practice. Okay. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.